ton of time practicing when you're in your full body cast through your teens.
Yeah.
Right? Playing in different bands, and you stick with that same band for a while?
I was in a bunch of bands through school, up and through high school. And then when I got out of high school, I answered an ad, and there used to be a free paper in Boston called the Boston Phoenix.
Yeah, I remember the Phoenix.
Okay, and they'd have classifieds for musicians and stuff for sale, apartments, all that stuff. It was a free paper, and I answered an ad for a band in Portland, Maine. And supposedly they were going to be managed by a band called Three Dog Night Manager, and they were going to move to Hollywood and do all this stuff. So I sold my Corvette. I moved up to Maine, and I stayed there for about a year and a half. They ended up not signing with the manager. They never went to Hollywood. I sold my Vet, 65 Vet.
Oh, no way.
And I hung around with them for a while, and then when that was kind of not happening, I took an audition to fly to London to play with this very famous drummer, Bill Bruford.
Yep.
And Bill Bruford was the drummer for a band called King Crimson and Yes.
Oh, yep. Okay.
And so I stayed with Bill.
What year are we at?
That was probably around 1974.
Okay.
Maybe 75. I graduated in 70.
Okay.
So I went up to Maine.
You're still young, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah. So I went to Maine for a couple of years, and then I went to up there to London and audition. I didn't get the gig, and I came back home, and I went with a very good friend of mine, and I moved out to the Midwest, DeKalb, Illinois, to put a band together with him. This guy was a fabulous drummer. His name is David Logeman, and he went on to play with Gino Vanelli and Frank Zappa and all the Beach Boys guys, and he's still doing that now out in L.A. And it just didn't work out, and I decided to move back to Boston and put a rock band together. And that's when I put my band together called The Streets, which was during the late 70s. I think we started around 76, and I broke the band up in 78. But, we were in the Boston Rumble and on tour with Aerosmith and Bob Seger and a bunch of stuff.
All right, so you're touring with Bob Seger.
Yeah, we did shows with Bob Seger. We toured with Aerosmith, worked with everybody. Derringer.
It must have been pretty wild, Aerosmith in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I have known those guys since, actually, before they got their record deal. I've known them since like around 71, 72.
Oh, really?
Because I used to work at the big music store in Boston called EU Wurlitzer's.
Yeah.
And I worked there right out of, after the year I graduated high school, around 71. I worked there for about a year. And I had met all those guys. That was the big music store.
Is that where Tower Records ended up being?
Yes.
Okay.
Right on Mass Ave in Newbury.
Yep, I know what you mean. Yep. Wow, that's amazing, right? That must have been such a cool scene back then.
It was Boston was a fabulous music scene back then because you had a great rock scene, always had a great blues scene, fabulous jazz scene because of, Berkeley and everything, and then a singer-songwriter folk scene, like, because it was Bonnie Raitt was here, Van Morrison was here for a while, you had Kate Taylor, Livingston Taylor, James Taylor. You had that whole...
Unreal. It's just an incredible amount of talent.
Yeah, it was a great scene.
Yeah. So your band, The Streets, right? I did some a little bit of research there, too. You guys were like number one in the BCN charts for like a whole... That song...
What Gives.
What Gives. Yeah. That's right. So for like 26 weeks or something crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were lucky to have a station in Boston that would support unsigned talent.
Yeah.
Because... It's hard enough to get songs played on the radio when you have a label behind you, but when you're just a local band with just a demo tape and no record, to get music played it's almost impossible. But they were a very progressive FM station. Yeah. I think one of the first FM stations in the country, like 1969, is when they came on the air.
Oh, BCN did?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
BCN was a great station. It was on for a long time.
Yeah. And had great personalities between Ken Shelton and Carter Allen and Chachi LaPrette and Mark Perreno and Charles Laquadara.
A lot of those guys were on BCN from the beginning until the end.
Yeah, well, Charles, he was right there from the beginning.
Didn't he go to ZLX? Didn't he go to ZLX at some point?
They all did,
Yeah, they all did, right?
They sold, I think BCN sold to Hemisphere Broadcasting. They turned it into a sports thing for a while.
That's right.
Even my old boss, Peter Wolf, was a DJ on BCN.
Yeah. Yeah, Peter Wolf went somewhere else too, right?
I don't think he was DJing anywhere else. We would do guest stuff
as a producer or something. I remember some show I was listening to was talking about him being the producer, and they didn't like him or something.
Well, there's two Peter Wolfs.
Is
There is
there?
a West Coast guy that's the Peter Wolf that does production and stuff like
Maybe
that.
that's what I'm thinking of.
I don't think it's the same Peter.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. So that's you're getting big at this point, right?
Well,
At least locally?
regionally and locally, kind of getting known. You know,
At least locally.
yeah. Like by the time I was out of high school and started playing on the scene, by 78, you know, because it was such a vibrant scene and there was so much local support by the newspapers and the radio stations that the people that kind of were the cream of the music scene that rose to the top would get, you know, notoriety in press and print and radio airplay. So in the area, I started to get known.
Yeah. Why did that band kind of disband?
I just kind of had enough of it.
Yeah.
You know, and it just was like I thought it ran its course. I felt that we had courted record companies and came close to getting signed. We almost got signed by Aerosmith's management. But we didn't.
Yeah.
So I just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is not happening.
Not working.
So
Time to move on.
gears, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for a while I think of what now the timeline here. I think I got married in 80. The band broke up around 80. Put another band together, I guess, in 81 or 2. Tried something different. It was called Hidden Secret.
Yep.
Put a band together with my wife singing called Hearts on Fire, which did well.
That's cool.
And then I just, we were having our child, and I just needed to make money.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know what, I'm going to concentrate on making money.
Yep.
And I really wasn't chasing a career anymore. And then when I came back and decided to start playing again, I just wanted to be a sideman.
So when you said making money, did you get like
I got a regular
job?
Yeah, I worked for Tom Scholes from the band Boston. He had a company called Scholes R&D. I worked for him for about 4 years as his audio tester.
Yep.
And then I went on to work for a representative firm that sold audio equipment. So I was like a rep, like a liaison between the dealer and the manufacturer. Sure. And I was pretty successful at that, made good money for that. And but then I got Joe, and during that time I got asked to play with Peter Wolf. And I had been playing with him for a while. He got a record deal. And he asked me to co-produce this record on Warner Brothers for him. And that was like a lifelong dream to be able to finally make a real record, have it on the radio, be in a world, you know, class band that's going to tour and everything. And I went to my boss at the time, and I said, listen, I've got this childhood dream opportunity to produce this record on Warner Brothers, one of the biggest labels in the world at the time. And I need to take 60 days off just to make this record and finish it. I said, I'll still call on my accounts by phone. And I had talked to one of the other guys in the firm, and he said if there were any fires that had to be put out, he'd do it for me. And I went to the guy and just pleaded my case with him. I figured he'd, you know, be sympathetic to me, but he wasn't.
No.
And he said to me, no, you're going to either have to choose between the job or this. Now, at the time, this guy, I had worked for him for 4 years, and during the 4 years, I had 5 different compensation plans.
Yeah.
Because every time I made more money,
Right,
he'd switch
cut it
the
back.
plan to try to cut it back. And I remember one time I went in the office. This is before I was trying to get permission to do this project. I went in the office, and he was cutting changing the compensation plan again to the way that the commissions worked and all this stuff. And he said, well, I think the job is really only worth $50,000 a year. At the time, which was, when was this? Late 80s. I was probably making about 80.
Okay.
And had
That's really good in the late 80s.
And I had a company car and gas and insurance and all this other stuff. He says, well, I think the job is only worth 50. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you just pay me 50 grand a year and we'll call it a day? Because at first I said, well, what's the incentive for me to sell more if I'm going to have a ceiling of 50 grand? I said, if that's what you think, pay me. He wanted me to pay 50 more, but if I didn't earn 50, he wanted to pay me less, right? And I said, well, that doesn't sound fair to me. And he just looked at us and he said, well, I live by the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Oh, wow, what a dick.
What a dick. And actually, that was his name.
Makes sense.
So I said, at that moment when I was sitting in that chair, I said, okay, I see I'm not going to be going anywhere here.
Right.
So I just kept that in the back of my mind. And when this opportunity came with Peter Wolf, and he said, you have to make a choice, I just said, I'm out.
Yeah.
And
See
which
ya.
it shocked him.
Yeah.
And because he didn't think I'd walk out with on like 75, 80 grand a year gig.
Right.
Who does that?
Right.
Me.
Yeah, you do.
I
Well,
do.
because you had a passion that you always had.
Yeah,
Right.
and I had to try. I had to follow it.
You had to go
know,
for
I had
it.
to try for it. And I had saved a lot of money. Like when I started working for that guy, I was only making $1,500 a month,
Right.
18 grand a
Right.
year.
Right.
And with my wife, I said, the more money I make, I'm going to pretend I'm only making 18 grand.
It's a way
a
to
year.
do it.
So I used to just take that $1,500 a month, and that's what we would use, and all the money I would just, put under the mattress,
Right.
like a good Greek boy.
Yeah. Right. Stash it away.
And then, by the time, I got the chance to do this Wolf thing, I had a bag full of cash that I could live off of while I was trying to get my career jump started.
What are you, about 30?
Yeah, that would have been around 92 I started playing with Wolf. That
Okay.
would have been 30.
Yeah.
The record, though, when we did the record, that was 96.
Yep.
So what was that, 52, 96, 43,
Awesome.
42?
You know what I love about this, though?
No, 30.
30,
96, 50, no, 40.
40.
Around 40,
Right?
yeah.
You know what's pretty cool about that, though? Like, you never gave up on what your dream was and your passion was. And when you kept going, even though you got the regular job, you always, keeping the relationships and working on it and waiting for something to come at you.
Well, I think my feeling about that with, and it's probably true with anybody that's got a passion, but, with artists, whether it's a screenwriter or a playwright or a photographer or a painter or a musician, it's like if you have that in you, it chooses you. You don't really choose it because it's really they got to be one of the shittiest professions ever, being an artist, because it's like being a salesman, and every time you walk up to sell a vacuum cleaner, they're slamming the door in your face.
Right.
It's very, very tough. I mean, it's 2% make 98% of the money.
That's it, right?
Yeah. It's
So
like
a lot of rejection.
a lot of rejection.
A lot of rejection, which mentally over time has to be tough.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. But you have to be tough to kind of deal with it.
Right.
But I think if anybody's, even if you're a chef or whatever business you're in, if you're a finance person and you have a desire to do it, and not every finance person is successful.
No.
Right.
Nope.
Not every real estate agent is successful.
Nope, absolutely not.
You just got to stick with it if you believe in it.
So, and I couldn't agree with that more. You know what I mean? Because you just gotta keep going and going and going. Are you gonna hit bumps and obstacles along the way? Absolutely, right? But if you have that passion and that drive and determination, and you just stick with it, things always happen.
Well, my
Things always
feeling
happen.
was like, if you're waiting for the bus,
Right.
if you walk away from the bus stop, the bus is never coming.
True.
But if you wait at the bus stop long enough, you never know. It
Right?
might show up.
You never know.